Excited to host this webinar to you. We've got around about 100 people attending tonight, so we're really grateful that you've spared some time to join us. If you're new to our webinar series, please mute yourself so we don't hear you guys in the background, so you can just hear the speaker's voice for tonight. The webinar tonight will be around about 45 minutes to an hour with question and answers throughout and also at the end. In terms of the webinar, it will be recorded and placed onto our YouTube channel for those people who are unfortunately not able to sort of see it live. So today we have a really talented bunch of dentists and students, and we will be introducing them throughout the presentation. The presentation today is going to cover a lot of information regarding the interview and preparation. So we've got a little bit about the online interview, the panel interviews, MMI interviews, managing stress, and also preparation. If you didn't know about us, obviously we're a platform helping students across the UK with their preparation. We've got lots of free resources on our website, and we also have services as well. Our most recent service is a new in-person interview day course, which is running in 3 different cities throughout the UK. That's London, Manchester, and Birmingham. So just so that you guys know, we've got that availability for our courses. At the day courses, we'll be doing a live seminars going through common sort of topics and scenarios and preparation, as well as going through a simulated interview mock where you get feedback, and it's going to be very, very similar to an actual interview. We've also got an online course as well for those who may not be able to attend or prefer doing their training online. And we also have a one-to-one interview sessions with our panel of students as well and dentists. So we have a lot of flexibility in our services. Now, I'm going to get into the meat of it now, because I know that you're eager to find out a little bit more about the topics for tonight. So I'm going to be introducing Fadila, who is a current student in 4th year, and she's going to be talking about the MMI interview.
So hi everyone, my name's Fadila. I'm currently a 4th year dental student at the University of Leeds. And today I'm just going to be covering a little bit about the Mmi form of the interview, which I was just going to say is relevant both for dentists and for dental hygiene therapists. So this form of interview has become increasingly popular over the past few years because they're a really good way for universities to assess the wide variety of skills that you need and see you in a more practical role as opposed to being on a panel. They usually have about 5 to 10 stations, with each station around 7 minutes long, potentially, with about 1 or 2 rest stations. Each station assesses different skills and qualities, and there'll be an interviewer present there to assess you. It's very much worth noting that every single station is assessed individually, so the interviewer won't have any inclination as to how you performed in the station before. So take each single station as a fresh one and don't be affected by something that may have gone wrong in a previous one. Yeah, next slide, please. Oh, as always, guys, if you have any questions throughout, just pop them in the chat and someone on the panel will be happy to answer them. So I'm just going to go through some of the common stations that appear on the MMIs and a little bit of advice as to how to go about tackling them. So role plays is quite a common one. I would expect at least 1 role play. And whilst it might seem a little bit unnatural for a lot of you to act out a scene, you're going to be expected to take part in these, not only throughout dental school, but obviously after dental school as well. It's a really good way of emulating situations that you're going to come across. So try to forget about the fact that you're acting and treat the situation as if it's going to be real, because pretty soon, if you're successful, it will be. Most of these role plays will require an empathetic yet ethical response to a scenario, and the scenario is usually clinical. You need to show that you're caring and professional while showing empathy throughout. And I would always recommend to begin each role play with an open question. Listen carefully to the actor in front of you and check that they're following and understanding what you're saying throughout. Ensure that you've covered everything on their mind. So sort of break apart everything they've said and make sure you've addressed everything, and then work with them to formulate a plan as needed. The next station that's quite common is motivation for dentistry. So you will be expected here to show a clear insight into the profession and explain what attracts you to the career. So I'd definitely recommend it be a good idea to avoid anything that might seem shallow or materialistic. The key focus to keep here is reflecting on your dental work experience of shadowing. So I know with COVID, a lot of you may not have been able to achieve that, but there are various online courses like the one we offer at I Want to Be a Dentist, as well as a couple of other courses that you might have seen. So reflecting on that is really key here. Not just your dental work experience though, any other work experience will have offered you transferable skills. So reflect on everything and really show how this contributed to your desire to pursue dentistry. It would also probably be a good idea to have a relative insight into other healthcare pathways, and to show you considered that, and then how dentistry suits your personality and skill set best. It just shows that you've sort of been realistic with your approach and not just, on a whim gone for dentistry and think it suits you. It's very like a logical, rational kind of thinking. Next slide, please. The next station that's quite common is a problem solving station. So this might appear in the form of a graph or a verbal mathematical puzzle. So what's important here is, first of all, not to panic. I would always recommend sort of taking a minute to have all the information in your mind, break it up, and then start speaking. I wouldn't just go, straight in. Try to always have a structure to your answer and approach it with a clear and logical process, and then talk through. It's not so much always the correct answer they're looking for, it's more the way you approach the station. So talking in a confident and clear manner. Another common station is ethics, and this has quite a clear focus on GDC standards. So I definitely recommend reading up on the GDC standards before your interview. Always approach these questions. Again, think about it before you start and approach it with a balanced standpoint. So, talk about the pros, talk about the cons, and then have a sort of conclusion that you've come to, rather than just going straight in with a yes or no answer. Always with ethics, it's more often than not, I would say it's not a yes or no answer. So they just want to know that you're approaching it with a well-rounded sort of way of thinking and considering every single aspect that could affect the scenario. I'd also recommend reading up on the core principles of medical ethics before your interview, and referring to them in your arguments will sort of really help you stand out and show off. Next station, please. Next station, next slide. So another station that's quite common is a manual dexterity. So some universities might ask if you can bring examples or evidence with you. So that might be in the form of some artwork, some knitting that you might be doing, something like that. Other universities could ask you to complete a little task under pressure. So this could just be something that's showing you have manual dexterity. Again, it's not necessarily important that you finish the task all the way through. I remember at my interview at Leeds, I actually didn't complete the manual dexterity station. I didn't end up with the product they wanted me to complete, but I think what they were looking for was that I didn't panic. I approached it calmly and I was able to work under pressure. I might actually remember going wrong as well, midway in the middle, and inside I was kind of panicking, but I kept a confident sort of front, and I just went back. I remember really acting and putting like a confused face on, going back, reading through each steps and kind of checking through. So kind of showing that it will show them that you can work under pressure and you're not going to panic. So just bear that in mind. And another common station type is the personal statement. So as you all know, your personal statement is very important and key in terms of the stages of the application process. So I would know this personal statement inside and out. It's what you've used to show off every single experience and quality that you've built over the years, which I'm sure, since it's taken so long to get to this point, I'm sure there'll be many. So again, a key point here is to reflect on the skills and qualities that you mentioned and then link them back to dentistry. I'd also avoid trying to fabricate anything. Be honest. They always will try to catch you out, or if it's something that you haven't been entirely honest about, they could probably maybe ask you about a specific about something you mentioned, and then it won't look very good on you if you're stumbling and looking like you don't know what you're talking about. So I've just got some general tips for your MMI interview preparation. So firstly, do thorough research into the university. So make sure you're aware of the location, the teaching style, the societies, the unique facilities that the university offer, because this is going to show that you're genuinely interested in studying there. I'd use these factors to your advantage and then show them how it's going to make you an ideal student at that specific university. Second one is to know the personal statement like the back of your hand. I think I've said this exactly a couple of minutes ago. So it's something you've written to summarize all your personality and skills, but above all, it's showing your competency for a career in dentistry. So it's important that you've been as honest as possible, as I've mentioned before. I'd also recommend to practice role playing. This in my experience, I've done quite a few mock MMI interviews with a lot of applicants, and the role play station is one of the ones that they find the most difficult just because it's something they're not used to doing. They're very common at MMIs. They're going to check your ethics, they're going to test your communication and your team working skills all at once. So it's quite a good interview, a good station for the interviewers. It's a very good idea to practice this, whether it's with a family member, a friend, even in the mirror if you want to. But I'd say someone watching you is a great way to prepare, because you can sort of bounce off each other and have to, act under pressure. For example, you can maybe have a friend act as a nervous patient and then you play the role of like a junior dentist responsible to calm her down. That could be a good idea. Always feel free to look at on our website, we have a lot of sort of potential questions that could come up. So definitely a good idea to be practicing this sort of thing. Next one I've written is to record yourself discussing hot topics in dentistry for around 5 minutes or so. So this will just help you perfect your time management skills and ensure that you can practice communicating concisely and clearly. Again, look on our website for current hot topics, but I'm sure you can imagine COVID definitely is one, because that's quite current and doesn't seem to be going away anytime soon. And then after that, learn the GDC standards, and almost comments just blocking the slide a little bit. I'd probably say is the core principles of medical ethics. Yeah. So ethical scenarios will probably come up in every single MMI that you do, whether that's through a role play or just a station dedicated entirely to the ethics. So it's important to recap these guidelines set by the GDC, because it's really going to help you formulate your answer and present a balanced argument for any complex case that you're provided with. And always referring back to these principles of medical ethics or the GDC standards will really help to show the university that not only are you prepared, but it also shows a deeper insight into the ethical side of things, which is quite prevalent in dentistry. Learn about dentistry in general through articles, as well as the key skills required of a dentist. So I kind of split this into two. In terms of learning about dentistry in general, always, I would say to ensure that you remember where you got your information from. So rather than just coming out with loads of information that you maybe read, it's nice to sort of say, oh yes, I read in this journal article, just so it shows that you have a concept of, what kind of research is valued to be something to be able to be referred to. And just have a general knowledge of key terminology and things like that, just so it doesn't throw you off at interview. If you have that sort of extra insight, it might help to improve your confidence in the moment. And then coming on to the key skills required of a dentist, when you're talking about this, always make sure you're referring to your work experience, because it's all well and good saying a dentist should have good communication. It's sort of more generic. To be able to refer to specific scenarios that you've been in and saying that you've witnessed a dentist sort of put that into practice, and then linking that back to your own experience is really what universities will be looking for. And then at the end, I've put above all, it's important to be confident. So universities aren't looking for perfection. We're all human at the end of the day. So you just need to do your best. Even if you're not feeling confident, like I said, with my manual dexterity station, I didn't do the best, but it's all about, this is one of my mottos, like fake it till you make it. No matter what's going on the inside, if you're able to show a confident front and carry on in a logical manner, it just shows that you're able to work under pressure. So yeah, that's all from me, I think.
Thank you very much for that. We're now going to go on to Raza, who's going to talk about the online dental interview.
Hi, everyone. Firstly, welcome again to my section. Thank you, Fadila, for explaining and rounding off the Mmi interviews in such a coherent manner. But yeah, let's get straight into it. So my name is Raza. I'm a second BDS at the University of Leeds. And I'll be talking about a little bit about online interviews and how you can tackle them. I know this is quite the most important aspect of like interviews in general. This is what most applicants are currently worried about. So hopefully after this section, you'll feel a little bit more confident. You'll have a few tips under your sleeve for when it comes to online interviews in general. So firstly, what is an online interview? You might have like never had an interview before, or you may not have even had like a virtual interview. Of course, because of COVID, we've had to adapt to learning online, especially at university, and everything pretty much involves using technology nowadays. So an online interview is essentially where you join a Zoom meeting or any other platform, just like you have done today, and interviewers on the other end will ask you questions, you'll respond to them, but the main difference is that it's pretty much virtual, and you're not meeting them face to face for obvious reasons. Now, this is a unique situation. COVID has been around for almost 1 or 2 years now, so we're still kind of adapting. So it's pretty much new for everyone, including the interviewers themselves. So one of my main advices on the day is, if you are feeling nervous, then just think about the other people who are also in your situation. There are literally thousands of applicants, hundreds of applicants who have interviews, and they may also be nervous, just like you are. So you're not alone. I think that's very important to remember when you're heading into any interview. And if you feel that way, then most people will also feel that way. Okay, so type of assessment. Now, some universities will still adapt an Mmi interview style, or some universities will switch their interview style from panel or just a general interview conversation. Now, this cannot literally be verified until your interview invitation is sent out. This is just because universities are currently still adapting to the whole COVID situation. They have a lot going on in terms of arranging students and teaching the course at the same time while trying to adjust everyone in for interviews. Now, universities do understand that, you know, not everything can be done online. For example, a manual dexterity task, it's very difficult to assess how good or your manual dexterity may be online, but it's mainly the reflection that they're looking for. It's mainly what you take away from the interview and still how you adapt yourself to the online interviews. These are like kind of the key things that they will look out for. Now, if I can get the next slide, Cal. Now, the format. Okay, so most interviews will be conducted over, for example, Zoom or Teams even, and these instructions will all be sent out to you in the email that you get, confirming that you've got an interview from, for example, the King's College London or University of Birmingham. And like I said previously, it really depends on how well your university has adapted to COVID over the couple of years, because some universities may still be able to get applicants in and do face-to-face interviews. Other universities will completely say, look, we don't have the capacity or the facilities right now to accommodate like hundreds of applicants to come in the building. So they will still do it online. So like I said, this completely depends on the university, and unfortunately is one of those things where you have to wait out and see, because the universities are a bit reluctant to release this kind of information. So yeah, like I said, some universities have also changed from Mmi to panel, and this will be told to you in advance. But I think what's really important to remember here, and I'm pretty sure all of the co-directors on the panel will agree with me here, is that it's not really about the style of interview you have. The basic principles of an interview still stay the same. So if you're still talking about professionalism or commitment to dentistry or your motivation to dentistry, it pretty much all stays the same. Like the sort of questions you get asked, or the kind of characteristics that they look out for, still stay the same. And yeah, I think that's all I'm going to talk about with regards to the format. Now, here are some general tips from my end. Make sure you're well prepared in advance. Now, dentistry is such a career that it's really, really competitive, and you may sometimes think that you're in the clear with the grades that you have, or the achievements that you've previously done, but there will always be people who are on a similar level or even done better than you, which still would not get an offer. So I think it's always good to be prepared in advance. You don't want to take a risk, especially if dentistry is really what you want to do. So make sure that you're ready for any changes, any adaptations that the university sends out to you. For example, they might switch their interview style last minute. You might be expecting an MMI, turns out it's a panel, or you might be expecting a panel, or it might be an MMI. So yeah, make sure you stay on top of this. And yeah, don't be surprised if there are any last minute changes. Also, I think it's very important to be very professional about this. So make sure the email account that you have access to, you're not pretty much ignoring that, because that's going to have all the key information. Make sure that you're keeping up to date with the university's websites and keeping up to date with COVID, for example, seeing what's going around. So I think it's quite important to watch the news in this time and era. And I think universities are all unique, so they will have a different way of testing applicants. Some might send you out a preparation kit in advance for your interviews, for example, saying, oh, these are the questions we're going to ask, but make sure you only open this pack on the day of your interview, for example, and they will watch you open pack live on camera. Other universities will completely have their questions written and it will be online. So yeah, that can happen. So yeah, make sure you have like a good way of doing the interview. So you're in like a well-lit area, you're well-dressed, well-presented, nothing really changes, because just because it's online, it doesn't give you the excuse, for example, to show up late or not be on time or not take it seriously. I think this once again just reflects the importance of staying up to date with everything. It's very, very important to make sure that you are dressed formally, you take the interview seriously, and you also are on time for it, and you overcome any barriers that you may have, for example, technical issues or where you're going to sit and do the interview. I think that's all very important. If I can have the next slide. And yeah, technical setup. Now that we're talking a little bit about the technical side, I'll just quickly cover some of the things that you should be aware of if you have an online interview. I think make sure, really, really important, last bit, that every device that you have is fully charged with regards to doing the interview. So if you're on a laptop or PC, even an iPad or whatever, just make sure that it's fully charged and it's in working order. You don't want any last minute connection issues or anything like that. So make sure wherever you're seated in your house or in the area that you're going to do this interview, make sure that it's in a quiet, neutral background. It's a nice, well-presented area with a stable and a good Wi-Fi connection. This is something you should be thinking about from now until you actually get your interview offer, because I think what is really important is that you don't rush this last minute. You don't want to be stressing about this on the time that you have your interview. And of course, let people know that you have an interview. So tell your family members that I have an interview, or wherever you are based, just tell them that you don't wish to be disturbed at this point, because I think it once again reflects how well prepared you are. Especially, you don't want no background noises or anything like that. It has to be in a very professional manner. And yeah, that's a little bit about the technical setup. Next slide. Okay, here are a few more tips regarding the virtual interviews. So firstly, your body language and posture. Like I've discussed before, it shouldn't change the way you think about interviews just because the interview's online. You still need to be dressed smartly, sitting upright, talking to the camera, and make sure that you're in a good posture, you're not slouching or a bit too close, or you should just be in the right position. I think this makes you look very professional. It sets you in good tone for the interview, and it kind of keeps you on your toes, so you don't kind of doze off just because the interview is online. So yeah, this all comes up under non-verbal communication. So how you act, what gestures you do with your hands, or if you're engaged or you're not engaged. I think these are some of the things that the interviewers will definitely like tabs on, especially if your interview is online. And yeah, like I said, dress smartly, sit appropriately, and take the interview as seriously as possible. And yeah, one key thing is don't have any notes on the side or around the screen or anything like that. I think it becomes really obvious that you're reading off something or something else is helping you. And this is seriously not a chance that you want to take, because you know, if they do catch you out, then it not only affects that interview that you have, it can affect your place in dental school. And not just that, any future interviews that you have may be affected by that. So it's just not worth the risk. And yeah, orient yourself towards a camera and screen. Many people ask, like, am I meant to always directly stay at the camera or look at the screen? I think it's good to have a right balance between the two. So sometimes when you're talking and you know what you're saying, just literally look at the camera just to show them that you know eye contact is important. Other times, I think it needs to be a good balance between looking at a screen, what's in front of you, and then just rotating between the two, finding a right balance. I think the best applicants usually do that, and they do it quite well. It shows a bit of confidence, and it shows that you're well prepared as well. So that's just some of my tips for the online interviews. I'll now pass over to Jas, who will explain the dentistry panel interview. Thank you guys so much for listening.
Hey guys, I'm Jazz. I am a foundation dentist currently, and I went to Peninsula Dental School. So about the dentistry panel interview. So Fadila and Raza has covered most of the stuff. That what they said is correct in the sense that every question you get asked, the theory and the structure is the same as the other type, as the MMI interview. But what happens is with a panel interview, you consist of 1 to 3 interviewers. So you're not just speaking to one person like it is one-to-one in the MMI stations. And it usually feels a bit longer because you don't have the breaks of moving around stations. So it's usually about 20 to 40 minutes. And it's a traditional style of interview. So it's more question focused rather than task based. So you won't be asked to do any acting. Well, usually you won't be asked to do any acting or any manual dexterity tasks, things like that. But we never say rule it out. We always say to, even if you think you've got a panel interview, to prepare an MMI as well, just in case, because they do overlap in some ways and you don't want to be caught out where you're underprepared. And some areas, some dental schools might give you a scenario before going in. So they may start off by giving you a sheet of paper or making you read something online, which gives you maybe an ethical scenario and you get to write notes on it. Sometimes they allow those notes to come in with you, or sometimes they just ask you to leave them outside if you're in person, or will tell you to put them away if you're online. And then you go straight into the ethical scenario. And then once you finish that, you then start talking about the other questions that they may have, which will be completely unrelated to the first thing that you've been speaking about. Okay, so don't be afraid if it chops and changes from like 1 minute you're talking about an ethical scenario, next they're asking you why do you want to do dental school. They don't actually relate. They're just trying to get through all the questions that they have. Okay. It's also really important to note what the panels consist of. It's not always just senior dentists and lecturers. They can be other people, students, laymen, like non-dental people, because it's in a panel interview, they're not assessing how, they're not assessing just your dental knowledge and how well you are in terms of like knowing all the lingo. They want to see if you've got good communication skills, if you can be empathetic, all of these characters that a dentist has. And if a layman likes you, a layperson likes you and says, you know what, they really gave me they calmed me, they were speaking really professionally, they were like really easy to understand, that adds points onto your panel interview. Okay, so you're not just talking to someone who knows everything about dentistry. You have to remember they're looking at your personality as well and how good you communicate. So what they look for, sorry, 1 second, last thing on that side. So preparation and motivation for dental school, personal qualities and resilience, teamwork, interpersonal and communication skills, problem solving abilities, empathy, integrity and professionalism, all of which Fadila has covered before. So it's very much the same things, just asked in a different way. Okay, next. So just some useful tips on how I would attempt any interview. Which is firstly, be prepared, which we've all spoken about a lot already. Have a strong understanding of the dental school you're applying to. So I remember someone asked in the group chat, what does that mean? What does it mean having an understanding of the dental school? It means knowing how they teach, if they're problem-based learning, if they're not. What year do you start clinical treatment? So does that suit you? Do you like learning the theory, then going to start clinical treatment, or do you like going in the first year doing that? Knowing the structure of how they assess you, if it's more practical based or theory based, knowing if you move around. So in Peninsula, you don't stay the whole time in Plymouth. You moved to Exeter for 1 year, then you moved to Truro for 1 year, then you're back in Plymouth. Things like that shows that you're really keen about the university, you really looked at it. And also knowing the area, sometimes they can ask, like, why did you choose this uni? What did you like other than the course? Because you may have spoken about that in a previous question if you're in a panel environment. And so you need to know something about the area. Okay, you need to look interested into that uni. Like, you have to sell yourself, but they also want to know that you like them. You didn't just fall into this uni. Okay, but you also don't want to over prepare where you don't sound natural, because you can become robotic, you can become monotonous by just reeling out what you think is the perfect answer, and you lose your personality in that. And when you lose your personality, especially in dentistry, you lose the engagement side of things, and almost your interviewer will fall asleep and just be like, well, you're not enticing me. And if you were a dentist trying to speak to a patient about some treatment, they're not going to listen to you, they're just going to fall asleep. So you have to kind of try and keep it engaged, try and keep your personality going, keep smiling, things like that. So that kind of leads me on to my next one, which is keeping engaged. Listen carefully, answer the question they're asking. Okay, people often hear one thing, hear a key word and go, oh, let me just talk about something I've prepared already, like on this subject. But actually listen to what they're asking, because although they're using overlapping words, they might want you to, adapt what you think is the correct answer to answer their question, if that makes sense. Generally, more in-depth questions are asked on your personal statements. So know your personal statements well. If it's a panel interview, they tend to ask about personal statements, like, oh, you said this, what does this mean? How do you do it? And again, if it's in person and even online, they may be writing or their head may be down. And that's not a chance for you to to also drop your head and not pay attention. You still stay engaged. Don't let that throw you off, and just keep focused, keep looking at them. Okay. Be interested. So convey genuine interest and passion. Like I said, let your personality come out. And genuinely enjoy it. Don't just think they're trying to test you. Try and show that you're enjoying this, because if you can enjoy an interview in front of loads of people, they know you're a confident person, and they know that you've got a personality, and they know that you're ready and raring to go for dentistry. If you're looking timid and shy and not interested and kind of just waiting for the next question to come, it doesn't come across confident at all. So kind of look interested, and if you don't know an answer, that's also okay. You can just smile and be like, that's a really interesting question, and I've never thought of that. I'd probably want to do a bit more research before answering that in full depth, but this is my current views. And it just shows that you're still thinking about what you want to do next, if that makes sense. And finally, be yourself. So your interviewers will ask you a number of questions about your application, experiences, and general understanding of dentistry as a career and its role within society. And you need to make sure that you don't lie in anything, because it will catch you out when you're going around. Try not to repeat yourself too much unless it's an MMI, because they don't know what you've said previously, but in a panel they know what you've said, so you don't have to repeat yourself over and over again. And just have fun with it. So stay professional. Okay. And yeah, that's it.
Okay, thank you very much, Jazz. We're now going to introduce Dr. Musso, who's going to be talking about managing stress during your interview.
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. I hope you can all hear me. My name is Adam. I am one of the co-directors here at I Want to Be a Dentist. And today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how to manage your stress through your application journey. Can we go on to my slides, please? One down. Keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. Until you see the orange stuff. Yep, there you go. That's the one. Lovely. So obviously, as this is a webinar, I need to have the mandatory about me slide. It says that I'm a final year at Barts in London. I've actually just recently graduated, just like Jazz. I graduated from Barts and London, which is in East London, best uni in the UK. No bias there. I also achieved all of my other offers from obviously Barts, Newcastle, Liverpool, and Sheffield. I've also sat on the Barts interview panel, so I've seen probably hundreds of candidates, and through this experience, I've managed to kind of get a good insight into the do's and don'ts of the interview process. And the reason why I kind of jumped at the opportunity to present this topic is because I'm actually researching into it. I'm researching into how emotional factors such as stress can affect dentists and dental practices in terms of their quality of care. And that's what I want to share with you all today. And my passion includes pasta. There's a photo of some that I made just there. The reason why it's so zoomed in was because I got too excited and ate part of it first. So I just zoomed in. Anyways, let's look a little bit into why your interviews can get stressful. So I'm sure a lot of you will be thinking, well, obviously it's going to be stressful. It's an interview. But there may just be some stuff that you haven't really thought about. So I just want to make you aware. Firstly, obviously the occasion. Okay, we shouldn't ever lie to ourselves. It's a tough day. But that doesn't mean that you can't channel that sort of nervous energy into positivity and into enthusiasm. And that's kind of the thing you have to do. You have to practice doing as the big day comes nearer. Specifically looking into MMIs a little bit, when I talk to previous applicants about sort of if they have not done so well, why? And they say that what can happen is you go to a station, you don't perform so well, and you let that sort of impact your future performance in the other stations. So you dwell on the previous ones, you think, oh God, oh, I should have done this, I should have done that, and you're not actually fully focusing on the task at hand. I've been a victim of that as well, but you can't let that happen to you. If one thing goes bad for you, you just have to move on. It's not over till it's over, and just keep pushing, okay? The interviewers, which is actually really important, they want to see how you handle stress, okay? Sometimes when they talk to you, they can interrupt you, they can cut you off, they can look here and there, and it works on way more people than you think. It really can throw people off. I remember an interview I did, I had 3 panel interviewers, and 2 of them were the loveliest people in the world. And the other person actually got his phone out and started texting while I was talking. Okay. Which kind of gave it away for me that this guy is just trying to throw me off on purpose. Do not worry about it. Stay respectful, stay engaging, keep enthusiastic. And that's what they want to see. The more they test you, the more they bait you out, the better you're doing. Okay. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying every interviewer is coming for your throat, but I'm saying that something like that can happen, and I don't want it to throw you off. All right. And finally, this probably won't apply as much in an online setting, but normally in an interview process, you're given a sort of briefing at the start, and then you may be made to wait for a little bit before your interview starts. And that can sort of, again, that kind of the waiting, the anticipation can kind of throw people off. So just keep that in mind, okay? If we can go to the next slide, please. So I've been through why the interview process can be a little bit stressful. So now we need to think about how we can mitigate these things and how we can alleviate these things. So let's start with before your interview, which is now. And the most important thing is preparing. That's the main message here, because if you know your stuff, if you can articulate your sentences well, if you have good body language, you're confident in your MMI scenarios, you're confident in your panel questions, you're going to feel better going into the interview. It's like with any other sort of examination. If you've revised, if you know the stuff, then you're going to go in thinking, all right, what are they going to throw at me? And you feel more assured. And when you feel more assured, you feel less stressed. If you compare that to the applicant who's crammed it all in, 3 days, they've just no sleep, 3 hours sleep, just absolutely cramming, and they don't know anything, and they think fluoride is a Lord of the Rings character and they're disorganized. You can see the difference. So use this time you have now and prepare thoroughly. And if you don't know where to start with that, that's what we're here for, okay? Get in touch with us and we can help you. You do need to also practice stress busting techniques. Now, I can't actually go into them in this webinar because I'd be ranting at you for 3 hours. But one thing I encourage all of you to look into, if you haven't already, is something called mindfulness, which is essentially a state of awareness, a state of full presence, and not being overwhelmed by a situation. Okay. There are tons of different ways of practicing mindfulness, meditation, breathing exercises, yoga. The NHS Choices website has a lot of information on mindfulness. There's a lot of guidance. There's a lot of YouTube videos as well. And I encourage everyone at this webinar to just try it for 5 or 10 minutes in the morning. And it can make you feel so much better about your day, honestly. Taking breaks, so important, especially for people like yourselves. When you have a lot of assessments, deadlines coming up, we tend to kind of smash it all out in one go. Generally, that's not a good idea because your productivity, the quality of your work will decrease. Okay. You need to balance your work and your break time and your free time. Okay. So please take care of yourselves. Don't let this interview preparation come at the expense of your general or your mental health. Okay. And finally, the day before, which is a sucky time for everyone. Do not cram information. Okay, it will make you panic. We don't want to do that. We want you to be well prepared beforehand. Get everything ready for tomorrow. And I mean all of the small stuff. Your clothes, your food, trim your nails, all the really small stuff that you don't really think matters. Get that done the night before. Okay, because on the day, you want to just be focused on one thing going into that interview. Give me my offer. Thank you very much. Okay. And chill out a little bit. I remember the day before my interviews, I would, play on my games console, go for a run, just have a little chill out, just have a little relax. If you've done the preparation, then you can afford to do that. And that can really, really help you on the day. It makes you feel more relaxed. Next slide, please. So once the interview is done, practicing your stress busting techniques and managing your stress afterwards is just as important. A lot of people tell me that, before the interview, they feel okay, but after the interview, they look back on what they've done and they think, oh my God, I should have done this. Oh my God, I should have done this. And that can stress them out even more. So after the interview, be proud of yourself, okay? Because this is not an easy process at all, okay? You are a cohort that is sort of specially selected because very few people have the qualities to be a dentist, okay? So be proud of yourself that you got this far. You need to continue stress busting techniques, continue your mindfulness, particularly for those, going into their A-levels or going into final year examinations. It works just as well, okay? And I know I talked about looking back on your performance and getting stressed out, but what is important is that you do look back on your performance, but in a way that you think, okay, this didn't go well for me. So if it happens again, what do I need to do so the situation is better for me? So reflecting, looking back on your experiences and using those experiences to perform better in the future, particularly if you have other interviews coming up. That can be really, really important. And finally, ask for help if things are getting too much. This is a hard process, okay? And you need to have a good support network. That can be family, that can be friends, that can be us, okay? If you don't know where to go, you can message one of us, honestly, because we've all been through it. All right, your mental and your general health comes first. Next slide, please. And just to wrap up, this is a quote from a doctor called Hans Selye. He was an endocrinologist, and he pioneered what is now known as stress research, so how stress can impact performance. And no matter how skilled or how good you are at something, it is the reaction to stress that will affect you. Being stressed is normal. That is a normal human emotion, and no one is telling you to suppress it. But you need to manage it. You need to channel it into something positive. And that's what I want you all to think about tonight and in the next few weeks as you prepare for your interviews. Next slide, please. And that is it from me. Just a few resources. IWantToBeADentist.com has tons of articles that are free to access. with a lot of information on the application process. So I recommend you all visit that. I know that there are a few spaces left on those in-person courses in London and Manchester and what have you. If you can, have a look, see if you can go. I'll be there and we'll go in a bit more detail about managing stress. If you can't make it to that, I also run one-to-one mentoring, which I think was mentioned earlier. That link is just on your right there, linktr.ee/Adam Musa, and you can book mentoring with me if you'd like. And finally, if you have any questions at all, my Instagram, Adam_Musa98. My DMs are open. I aim to reply on the same day. So just message me if you have, or email me if you have any questions at all. We're here to help you. Thank you so much for listening to me.
Thank you very much, Adam. That was fantastic. And thank you to all of our co-directors for lecturing tonight. I hope everyone has really enjoyed listening to the information and hope you found it valuable. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to message us in the chat box right now. We'll be staying on up until 8 o'clock just to finalize any questions that anyone has. We'll also be putting some key links in the chat as well to give you more information. So please feel free to either open your mic and ask us a question verbally, or if you want to write it, you can do. The webinar, as I mentioned, will be recorded, saved, and uploaded onto our YouTube channel to allow those people to re-watch it, and also those people who haven't attended can also watch it as well.
I think Sarah has asked a question in the chat regarding a dental laboratory and make something that can prove their manual dexterity. I remember when I did my work experience in like one of the dental labs, I asked them to make like a little crown, which is really simple to do for them. It's like their everyday work and stuff. So you can ask them to allow you to make that, but really it's essentially, like I put in the chat as well, it's really about your reflection about manual dexterity. None of us, when we started dental school, had 100% manual dexterity. We had a decent level, but not 100%. So that's something that they really teach you on the course when you begin, but it's about your reflection. So what went well? How could you have improved? What would you do differently if you attempted that task again? And that's the key with manual dexterity stations. So I think it's really, really important. And yeah, guys, if you are worried about certain stations or certain questions, I think that's where our interview days are really key for you, because we're going to be running MMI mock interviews on the day. So it'll really, really put you in the correct position to tackle any interview scenarios. Because we put you under pressure, we test you, we give you feedback as well, and our co-directors actually give you lectures and presentations on the day. So I think it's going to be a really, really useful day for anybody like considering as an interview coming up. We're running it in 3 different cities: London, Birmingham, and Manchester. So yeah, do come along if you can. But if you can't make it to any of those days for whatever reasons, definitely try and book a one-to-one mentoring session or a mock interview with any one of us on the co-director panel, because I think we do definitely help out people get into dental school, and we've been doing it. So I think if you are considering, like if you're on the verge of considering getting one of our packages or anything like that, definitely do go ahead. But yeah, if you have any other questions, just put them in the chat and then we'll be happy to answer them.
We've just got a question from Aliyah about the online dental mock interview. Yes, we do run an online mock interview, and that is effectively a 2-hour one-to-one mentoring session that you get with one of the tutors. And as part of that, within that 2 hours, you'll also cover a mock interview in effect. So I'll put the link in the chat just now for you to have a look at the packages that we have. And also I'll put a link for the one-to-one interviews as well.
I think there was another question regarding, do you have to write essays in dental school? Yes, I think I've certainly had to write essays over 2 years, quite a lot of them. Adam, did you have to write essays over your BART's journey?
Big time, big time. Oh yeah.
So there's a lot of essays, yeah.
Yeah, just enjoy it. Enjoy the process, because you'll hate it when you're doing it, and then you'll look back and you'll think, oh, I remember those days. And it is a genuinely good way of actually researching and learning about a topic. But yeah, you'll be worked very hard in dental school. Don't get that mistaken. It's not easy at all. But if you want to do it and you're dedicated, then you'll enjoy it as well. Because weirdly enough, if you work with hard work, actually comes a lot of fulfillment and a lot of enjoyment as well.
Yeah, totally agree. I think you should enjoy that aspect. I think we have a few questions regarding what resources are best for researching current topics. I think we've got a lot of interview questions. I think one of the key things that you could do to revise is practice generally good interview questions. Also, I think topics, keep up with I think it's a British Dental Journal. I think they release articles every week. We have a few more hot topics. We also have a free guide booklet coming out regarding the interviews, which we will be sending out to our mailing list. So yeah, that will contain hot topics. It's basically a summary of everything, and you can use that as well. Generally, what is your recommended time to prepare for an MMI? Omar, do you have any answers to that? Omar's been literally helping out so much in the chat. Welcome, Omar.
Yeah, thank you, Azat. So hey everyone, my name's Omar. I'm a second year at King's College London, and I've just sort of been busy at the back end typing away in the chat box for everyone. So yes, Raz, your question was how much time should you prepare for an MMI, right?
Yes, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah. So generally speaking, you'd usually get your invitations to interview about 2 to 3 weeks before the actual interview. So a lot of the time that would be enough time to prepare, but we suggest that should be a minimum. So maybe perhaps a month after you should be expecting. So a lot of you guys should potentially be thinking about starting around this time, so in the next week or so, just because you never know when you might get your interview. Every university is different, and also generally the more preparation you do, the better you're actually doing in the interviews. So yeah, the earlier the better, but a minimum of 2 to 3 weeks I recommend. Should we see if there's more questions in the chat? So someone's asked, is King's MMI or panel? This one is a bit of a black box, because King's have usually done MMIs. Last year they switched to panels just because it was logistically easier to do online. And this year they haven't actually released any information. So we are not 100% sure. If anyone else, any of the other co-directors can second me or can maybe let me know if they've heard anything different, but I haven't heard anything from interviews this year.
Yeah, I think we've done our own research in the back and we couldn't really find much. But yeah, I've literally just put a link in the chat which goes to our Trustpilot profile. It's just a public way of you lot giving us feedback. I think we'd really appreciate it if you could just literally leave us a comment or a review on there about how you found our webinars, so we know what things we can include in the next one if we run it, and how we can constantly improve our platform. We had a question, do you give out bursaries for the mock MMIs? Yes, we do. We have bursaries available for each one of our services. All you need to do is send us an email at hello@iwanttobeadentist.com, and we have bursaries available for our online one-to-one sessions, or even our in-person days, which are in London, Birmingham, Manchester. So if you are a bursary applicant, do get in touch. We had a question, should my personal statement also focus in science as well? Jas, did you have any sort of advice for that regarding personal statements and what to include regarding the sciencey aspect?
So we have a whole webinar on personal statements on our I Want to Be a Dentist YouTube thing. So if you watch that, it'd be really helpful, YouTube channel. But you don't want to over science it where you've lost your personality, because otherwise you're just going to look like a textbook personal statement. But at the same time, you want to show an interest. So the sciencey side of things comes in with your work experience as well as any research you've done. And research really makes you stand out. So if you could talk about something new that's happening in dentistry that you found really interesting, or you've done your own research in, that's where the sciencey side comes in. But I wouldn't necessarily write, I took biology and this shows I'm good at this science, I took chemistry, this shows, because you have to do that for dentistry. Every applicant has to do biology and chemistry. So in that sense, I wouldn't make it too sciencey, but I would also include it where it's necessary, so in the research and in the work experience side of things.
Thank you. We had a question. Would you say dentists also have an impact on community? If so, how? Adam, how have you had an impact on community? You recently graduated, so could you shed some light on that?
Yeah, of course. Of course, dentists have an impact on the community, because we're part of the service profession. We're part of helping people not only get out of pain, but also improving their appearance, improving their confidence in themselves. So as a subsidiary of the healthcare profession, we have a huge impact. We have a huge responsibility to our communities to do, what's in their best interest. That's broadly how I would describe it. In my first few months working as a dentist, I've had, countless people come to me in excruciating pain or missing a front tooth. And when you're able to, alleviate them of those problems, then you truly get to see the impact it has. And it's something that's quite beautiful, actually, to be able to see. So that's how I'd answer it.
I totally agree. I think dentists are a very important aspect of community service, and like our other healthcare professions. I know somebody mentioned, would pharmacy be counted as like decent work experience to relating to dental field? I think it's more about how you reflect upon your experiences with your work experience. Even if you've got a work experience in a pharmacy, or I don't know, any locum place in like as a nurse or anything like that, I think it's just mainly how you reflect upon that. So you could say stuff like, I was still dealing with patients, I was listening to their inquiries or helping out, and I saw how busy it was and time pressured, and this is how I deal with these type of situations. I think that's how you tackle that type of questions and stuff. Any tips on how to structure your revision? Omar, do you have any advice for that? And how would you, the follow-up question was, what type of questions should I ask in a work experience placement?
All right, so when you're preparing for the actual interview, I think Fadila mentioned this earlier, I think she's left now, but it's really important that you record yourself. So if you're sitting on a laptop, you just literally just turn on your webcam and just practice answering your questions, because that's going to be so helpful in catching out where you're making mistakes, or where you're stuttering, or just generally what things you need to work on more. And so working on those little things and paying attention to all the details is really what's going to help affect your interview performance. That's essentially the best way to structure your interview revision. Of course, you do have to prepare questions. So if you have a list of questions, write a couple bullet points for each one as things that you would answer. And then once you have that list, then you can start really just basically spending maybe an hour a day just going through all the questions on a webcam and just rewatching yourself, seeing how you can improve, basically. And what type of questions you should ask in a dental and a work experience placement. So generally anything that interests you, or anything that essentially comes to mind that you're unsure about, because obviously if you're going on work experience, you won't know, for example, what all the materials are or what kind of procedure they're doing. So generally anything that interests you is really important, but more specifically than like all the technical aspects, you want to ask the dentist about how he or she is dealing with the patient, because you're going to see as you do work experience that not every patient is the same. Some patients will be angry, some patients will be like really upset. So the dentist has to deal with them in their own tailored way. So being able to really have a keen eye and observe what the dentist is doing and asking them how they're able to deal with all of these different patients is so valuable when it comes to you learning what the reality of dentistry is. And yeah, so I say that's a really important aspect of your work experience you should ask about. And yeah, let's see. Should we go through a couple more questions?
Yeah, I think there was one question I'd like to ask Justice and get her opinion on it. How do you feel about the general public overlooking the importance of a dentist? And they've also mentioned, like, we're always told to look after our general health rather than our oral health. And I know you did that amazing thing where you literally helped out, saved a patient's life recently. So would you like to shed some light on that?
Yeah, so what was the exact question? Sorry.
How do you feel about the general public overlooking the importance of dentists?
Okay, yeah, it's a very controversial topic, I'd say, in the dental profession. You get some people that don't really mind and some people that mind a lot, but we do have our place in society, and even if patients do overlook us, we are there to help, and that is our main thing. So it's not about what we feel the patients perceive us as, it's making sure we provide the best treatment we can and just make sure that we are putting our patients first, regardless of what, if they overlook us or not. All you can do is promote dental health, because that, like, so what Raza was saying is, I've had a patient recently who came for me for a dental checkup, and I found a large lump and ended up being cancer, very aggressive cancer. And the surgeons at the time said if we hadn't found it when we did, he would not be around today. So our role in society is huge, because he'd been going to his GP for other reasons, but they're never going to check around the neck and head base, like neck and region like we do. So there is a really important place in society for us, and general health is really important. And we also, as dentists, promote good general health. We give diet advice, we give advice on generally how to look after yourself as well as your mouth, because a lot of other comorbidities affect the mouth, like diabetes and smoking and things like that. And we are very much at the center of promoting general good health, which will then affect oral health. And that also leads on to the point before, where we were talking about how we affect the community. We don't just work in our little rooms and get you patients in, we do work in the community. So we do go to schools and we talk to nurses and we do all those things, and you will do that in your courses as well, which has a wider impact on society that you, in education, which is the most important thing, than you expect. So it's much wider than that. And I think especially in interviews, if you can show an understanding that we aren't just there to look in people's mouths, we are there to educate as well, that's going to be something that people can be like, wow, they've really thought about this. So it's not something to overlook.
Thank you so much for that insight into, like, your point of view, as well as, like, the importance of dentists. I think most people get a lot confused between dentistry and medicine as well, saying that, oh, dentists, well, we don't really save lives or anything like that, but it's a prime example of how we do and how we really make an impact on the community. But I think before you even consider the dentistry versus medicine argument, I think it's really important for you guys to undertake work experience, do your own research into what career you would want to do before you even get into that debate. Because I think most people are quite unsure, that they just end up, if they pick dentistry, it's just mainly because they want a more surgical career rather than a less hands-on one, rather than medicine, which is more advice giving and stuff like that, unless you specialize. So I think it's really important for you to do work experience, not only because it's a requirement, but because for yourself as well. Because if they ask you why dentistry, you're not really going to say, oh, just because I undertook work experience and that just made me think. But I think COVID is a great time to show your initiative to the universities and say, yes, COVID was a problem and I couldn't maybe get in-person work experience, but I used my initiative. I went online, there were articles that I read, I interacted with dental students, I attended webinars. So I think that's a great way to show the university that, yes, there was a problem, but this is how I overcame it. And we have literally one more question. Would you advise applicants to apply to dental schools outside of the UK as a backup? Are there any downsides? Anybody have any specific advice about applying to dental schools outside of the UK, or what do you guys think?
I mean, you can. There's nothing stopping you. Generally, I would recommend, if you are based in this country, doing the degree in this country. Mainly for the reason that if you want to end up working in the UK, it's best to get a dental degree in the UK. That's just how things work. It's easier for you to get into sort of foundation training programs. It's a lot less convoluted if you are based here, just to try and get into a course in this country. If you want to do it outside, that's completely your prerogative. Each country will have a highly varied application process in terms of both how it's done and the dates. So that would be something for you to research depending on where you'd want to go. But my recommendation, if you are based here and you want to work in the UK, get your degree in the UK. It just makes your life easier, honestly.
Yeah, and I think we have literally many resources on our website which cover all these type of bases. Like Cal's just put studying abroad article. We have that. We have life as a dental student. We have life as a dentist, foundation dentist, max fac surgeon. So literally we have a lot of information on our website. So yeah, do check it out. And like I said, we are quickly getting sold out for our in-person interview day courses. So if you want that that actual experience of getting an MMI in and getting proper practice in and taking the interview day seriously, then you may want to consider literally coming on our courses, and we can help you out face to face and give you tons more advice. Of course, it's a full day, so it's 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. There will be food at the venue. There will be lecturers delivering presentations. There will be a full MMI mock interview. You'll get to meet and talk to other dental applicants. And yeah, it's located in 3 different cities. So if you can't make it to one, then try and make it to another. And yeah, it's just going to be a full day packed with literally tons of resources that we're going to give you to take home as well. And yeah, it's just going to be a great revision day for your interviews. So do consider that. I think we had one final question which we didn't answer. What are some negatives of dental school? Any light on that, or what would you guys say if that came up in like an interview question on like what do you think are the negatives of dentistry or dental school?
So negatives of dentistry or dental school, because those are 2 different things. Or should I just
both?
Both.
A bit of both. Yeah.
All right. All right. Starting with dental school. Okay. Now, it's important in an interview question not to use any negative words, even if the question is negative. So instead of using stresses, bad things, negatives, all you do is you replace those words with the word challenges. Okay. So what a lot of people use. So if you're going to start the question off, you would say something along the lines of, I think some of the challenges of studying at a dental school are blah, 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 blah. So that's the first thing. All right. Try and avoid negative words where possible. In terms of the actual negatives, I mean, I'm sure the others can also chip in with this. For me, it was about, it's about the fact that it's sort of, you're starting out a process of lifelong learning. And in secondary school, I was one of the smarter kids. I was used to getting everything right, being top of the class. But with dentistry, it's a little bit different in the fact that it can be quite almost like an alien subject to you. And you need to be very receptive to learning. You need to be very receptive to receiving feedback, reflecting on that feedback, and just gradually improving. And that can sometimes be a tricky process to go through, especially when you're used to being top of the tree all the time back in secondary school. Another thing is just the work-life balance can be hard to get right at times, especially when exams are coming up. There's a lot of information in dentistry, far more information than you could imagine. And revising for exams, which are usually quite regular, means that, a lot of other uni students doing other subjects will be, I remember like, they would go out on every Friday night, they'd be having a great time, and I'd be stuck inside revising. And that was sometimes a little bit tough to swallow. But I mean, like I said, if you're dedicated to it and if you are a bit better at work-life balance than I was, you'll be absolutely fine. It's definitely a manageable degree. You just need to stay on top of things, really.
Thank you very much, everyone, for attending tonight. I think that wraps it up with the questions. We hope you enjoyed the webinar tonight, and we will be, as I said, saving this webinar and uploading it onto the YouTube channel, which is I Want to Be a Dentist on YouTube. Thank you very much to our co-directors who have given it their time today, and hopefully those of you who have sort of signed up to the day courses or our interview courses, we look forward to welcoming you and seeing you out, and we will see you soon. So thank you very much.